So what's up, guys? Here is the highly anticipated, and by highly anticipated I mean like 2 people have asked about it, Natty player rankings list, if you will. I've taken some YouTubers that I'm familiar with, kind of from our little corner of the YouTube fitness world, and ranked them on size, strength, aesthetics, and athleticism. All of these are self-proclaimed naturals. If you want to debate about whether they're natural or not, that's on you. I'm not going to entertain that. I have no reason to not believe any of these people. So yeah, as far as how I rated these, for strength, I'm going by absolute strength. On compound movements, it's just the easiest thing to compare amongst people with each other. So I'm not taking like strongman stuff. If people have stone loading videos and yoke walks and things like that, basically just compound lifts. Not just the big 3. I'm taking variations of the big 3: overhead presses, push presses, front squats, other things like that into account, just in their compound form. And athleticism is going to be absolute athleticism. It's not going to be like in strength. I'm not going to do pound for pound. For athleticism, I'm not going to give certain people credit for being a big guy who can move well. You can either do it or not. So there's going to be no subjectivity on that sort of axis. On the size and aesthetics axis, I'm going to be subjective for both. Obviously, aesthetics is subjective anyway. But for size, instead of going with, just somebody being physically weighing more than somebody else and that being the only factor, I'm going to also take into account like looking big on camera. So, a 280-pound guy isn't necessarily going to score better on size than a 220-pound guy. But he may. But again, it's going to be a combination of both there. So one axis is going to have some subjectivity, and one axis is going to have absolutely zero subjectivity. So that said, let's get into it. And I've kind of separated us into categories. So I'm going to start with the tanks. And I'm going to start with myself. So here's mine. Now, obviously strength, I scored myself a 9.5. I'm the strongest person I ranked on this. That's not being cocky. It just is what it is. There is one person on the list who outbenches me, which shocker. But as far as all around, like squats, deadlifts, bench, overhead press, front squats, Larson press, there's nobody on this list stronger than me in its totality. So obviously I get that there. Athleticism, I gave myself a 6. I think I'm slightly above average athletically. If we did take into account my size, I maybe would have scored myself like an 8 or a 9, but I'm not. So I just gave myself a 6 for that. Like basically going off my handstand stuff on my box jumps, a 47-inch box jump. Which is, above average, but it's not, I'm not scoring it as a near 300-pound man doing a 47-inch box jump, just a 47-inch box jump. So that's that. Aesthetics speaks for itself. I don't have them. And as far as size goes, I gave myself a 7.5. Again, I'm, 280 pounds, over 300 pounds at my largest. So I'm physically bigger than a lot of people. However, I don't necessarily look big on camera. So I deducted points there for what I had for actually being physically big. So that's that. I think that was pretty honest. Again, if you want to argue about it in the comment section, feel free. So for tank number 2, we're going to go with my man Toby. So here are his ratings. And yeah, so for strength, he got an 8.5. I think he's got the second highest strength rating on here, maybe. Yeah. Obviously, he's not as good at pressing as me or the other tank we're gonna see. He is better at deadlifting. I have a bigger squat and front squat than him. But Toby is very, very fucking strong, for lack of a better term. So he got an 8.5. He scored well on strength. Athleticism, I gave him a 2.5. Maybe he's more athletic than that. Maybe I've overlooked a video or two, but I don't think I've seen any like running or jumping videos of his. I've seen him kicking a heavy bag. I think I've seen him do like a weighted handstand push-up, but I've not really seen much in the way of athleticism from him. Toby, correct me if I'm wrong. Aesthetics, I gave him a 5. You know, he's middle of the road. When he cuts down, he has some abs and stuff. And in comparison to the average person, he would probably score better. But I try to keep these comparisons kind of amongst, you know, the fitness crowd itself. So I gave him a 5 for aesthetics. And then for size, I gave him an 8. And this is where it comes into, you know, most of the time I outweigh Toby, sometimes by, you know, 50 pounds or better. But he looks bigger on camera. You see he's got big traps. You know, sometimes he has abs, sometimes he doesn't. But he gives off the appearance of being bigger on camera than I do. So, and I think he's around 270 right now. So there's really not much difference in us in body weight either. So, you know, I scored him better than myself on size. And I think that speaks for itself. So let's go to our next tank. And it is Kauka. I think I said it right. Formerly known as 808 MMA. Here's his ratings. And yeah, so for strength, we'll start there. I gave him an 8. He does outbench me. He might outpress me, out strict press. I don't know. I don't remember. But he definitely outbenches me. But on squats and deadlifts, I don't think it's really close. I vaguely remember some old videos. I think maybe squatted 500 for some reps before. It's been a long time. But yeah, still all around, that's the only, you know, he gets deducted there. But his bench is fucking ungodly. Athleticism, I gave him a 1. I don't think I've seen anything athletic on his channel ever. Again, that's something he may be able to prove wrong, but based on the material I've seen, I think he's definitely the least athletic on the list. Aesthetics, I gave him a 3. I've seen some pictures of him slightly more aesthetic than myself, so I gave him a 3 there. Again, he's definitely not aesthetic, and I don't think he'll argue that. And for size, I gave him a 9. He's over 300 pounds. He's got big traps, big shoulders, big pecs. He certainly looks the part on camera. You know, even not being very aesthetic, he's a fucking monster. So, there. So, that's it for the tanks. Just 3 of us. Tell me your thoughts about the tanks. If you think I scored them right, what do you think I did wrong? We'll move on to the all-arounder. And this is the one I posted on my community wall. And it is JJ from Dairyland. So here it is again. Now for strength, I scored him a 5. I think, you know, he's kind of average strength wise amongst this group of people. In terms of absolute strength, athleticism, a 7.5. I've seen him do some box jumps, the rock climbing, hitting was it a speed bag he was punching? I have no problem scoring him higher than me in athleticism. Size and aesthetics, again, I scored him the same as me as size, and this is where I'm, you know, heavier. I'm a bigger person, but he's taller. He's a little more ripped up. He can look bigger on camera, and again, that goes with his aesthetics. You know, I gave him a 7.5. He's definitely above average there too. You know, over 200 pounds with abs, so he scored well. He's definitely the, you know, kind of the all-arounder here. Kind of good at everything, but not exceptional at any one thing necessarily. And again, you know, nothing wrong with that. A lot of people, would aspire to that. And in comparison to the average person, those numbers would certainly be much bigger than the ratings I gave him. But again, I'm comparing to, you know, other fitness people within the community. So there's JJ. And so next we have our athlete with 3 syllables. I think everybody knows who this is going to be. But without further ado, it's Alec Onkiri, and here's his ratings. So we'll start with the low ratings first, the size and strength. The strength, I gave him a 5. I think him and JJ are pretty similar in strength. I think JJ has a slight advantage in bench press, and Alec may have a slight advantage in deadlifts and squats. Maybe, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But I think they're very similar there. So I gave them both a 5. If you guys want to dispute that, by all means, go ahead. Size, I gave him a 5. He's a little feller. He's small. He's 160 pounds, I think. But he makes up for it by looking big. So he did get a 5 there. You know, he looks big on camera. His quads look big. You know, he looks big on camera. So like I said, I put some subjectivity into size. So while, you know, at times he is half the weight I am, he still appears big. So instead of giving him like a really, really low rating, you know, for what he lacks in actual size, he makes up for in looking big. Aesthetics, a 9. He's shredded. He's ripped. I don't think much needs to be said there. And athleticism, he got a 9.5. I scored him the highest on athleticism here. The next 2 could have been there, but they've changed kind of what they do now. And he's still training athleticism. And I gave him this 9.5 even before seeing the 4.3340. It sort of just kind of confirmed what I already gave him. So yeah, he got that 9.5. He earned that 9.5. It's well deserved in my opinion. He is athletic as fuck with that 4.33. His ridiculous vertical. He's got like a close to a 60-inch, maybe a 60-inch box jump, one of his really old videos, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there's that. So we went through tanks, we went through all-arounders, we went through an athlete. Now let's get to the freaks, the genetic anomalies, if you will. And there's 2 of them. The first one, I think you guys are probably going to guess pretty easily, and we'll just put it out there. It's, you know, the Bugs. So here's his player ratings. Now for strength, I gave him a 7. He is stronger than JJ and Alec with the static or with the compound lifts. However, he's definitely not quite on the level as, you know, Toby, myself, Kauka. So he kind of fell in between there. So he got a 7. Athleticism, he got an 8.5. Now, if he was still D1 wrestling and I was rating him at that time, he would probably get a 9.5 as well as Alec, but he's not doing that no more. He had a knee injury. I don't know where his athleticism lies now, but that 8.5 is basically just out of respect for what he's done previously. Size and aesthetics, I give him a 9 in both. You know, he's 6'2", 6'3", 230 plus pounds, shredded, jacked. So the aesthetics and size, you know, they are there. I don't think there's much to be said there. Yeah, he scored well. And so last but not least, we have one more freak. And this one might be the genetically freakiest one on the list. He's definitely got the biggest YouTube channel at this point on the list. But he came from our little corner, goddammit. So it's Matt Does Fitness. And here's his ratings. And with Matt, I scored him the highest on aesthetics because he is just fucking ridiculously ripped when he's at his leanest. Even when he's not lean by his standards and he's bulking, he's still fucking aesthetic as fuck. Size, he also got a 9. Again, he looks just absolutely huge. I think he's 6'3", well over 200 pounds. His pecs are big, his shoulders are big. His quads are big. He's fucking big. And again, this goes to genetics too. If you look at his Instagram pictures, he posts a lot with his son Luca, and his son is 2, maybe 3 now. And you can already see an outline of abs on his son. So that's, we talk about genetics a lot and who has them and who doesn't. And Matt's probably got some of the best genetics on the planet as far as that goes. Strength, 7.5. I scored him just above Eric. And just below some of the tanks. He has deadlifted deep into the 600s. I'm not sure if he ever got 700 or not. He was very close. I think he squatted right at 600, maybe a little bit more. And I know he's benched 4 plates. So, again, he's stronger than Eric in terms of those compound lifts. So, he got a 7.5 there. Athleticism, he got a 9. Again, this is out of respect. He was a national level triple jumper. And that's something, if he continued to train in that manner, he would probably also have scored a 9.5. I may have even given him a 10 if he had kept going that route. But yeah, he doesn't train that way no more. So he might not even be deserving of that 9 anymore. But again, this is just out of respect for where he's been. He could probably, within short order, be back on that level again. So, yeah. And then that's it. He's a freak. 9.5 aesthetics, shredded all the time, even when he's bulking. Side, he's fucking big. Like I said, he's probably got the freakiest genetics of anybody on this list. So, that's my list in its entirety. You can leave suggestions if you want me to do another one of some other people. I may do it, I may not. These were people who I was pretty familiar with. If there's anybody else that I was familiar with that I omitted, I probably wasn't that familiar with them, so I didn't do it. Again, debate, if you will, on my ratings. I was objective as possible, in my opinion, other than, like I said, the last 2. I kind of gave them athletic scores out of respect for where they've come from. But yeah, now's the part where I ramble for like 5 more minutes about nothing. So again, debate the ratings. Tell me if you think I'm a fucking idiot. I shouldn't have said that because that's probably going to be the majority of the comments. But there they are, guys.